So I first heard you about 3 days ago on the 580 Barbell podcast, talking about your 531 for Strongman article, which appeared on Elite FTS. Immediately looked that up, perused the article, which in fact means reading something very carefully. A lot of people misunderstand what the word peruse means, but I read it very carefully, and I was immediately fascinated. So I found your Instagram, reached out about the podcast, and here we are.
Oh wow, that is a quick turnaround then.
Yeah. So you're a competitive strongman under 105 kilogram,
Yep,
right? Yep.
yep,
And you have quite a bit of background in powerlifting. You trained, you're Westside trained, Westside certified,
I am.
right? Yep.
I am Westside certified. Yeah.
So how did that all start for you? What initially got you into the weight room?
Oh, the weight room started a long time ago. I got into weight training at around 18. I'm 35 now. I went into weightlifting after getting into free running, free running parkour.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was a much smaller frame back then. Can't do that anymore. But after a couple of years of getting into like regimented fitness, I realized that some strength training would probably be really handy. And a friend of mine dragged me down like the local bodybuilding gym, and I just fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. 2, 3 years later, I was a qualified PT, and then started going from there.
What do you think it was that you latched onto so hard?
I was not a particularly competitive child or particularly sporty child, to be honest. I'm not the most coordinated human being on earth. So, like games, sports, football, as in soccer here in the UK, rugby, basketball, I just wasn't very good at any of them. But I was quite strong. So it was nice to be able to put effort into something and see a reward quickly. And it meant for the first time in my life I had to be disciplined to get better at it. So yeah, after that it was chasing numbers for the longest time, chasing numbers, knowing that that extra 5 kilograms on a lift meant that something had gone well. It was very quantifiable.
Yeah, and so that makes sense to me how you might have naturally transitioned into powerlifting.
Yeah, yeah. Because
So were
then it's
you
all the numbers.
right? Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that a lot of us who just latch on to strength training maybe didn't realize that we were looking for something, some kind of quantifiable metric to measure our
Yeah,
progress. And I mean, it's a cliche, but there's freedom in discipline, I think. And so,
there really is
yeah.
so much so. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. And so were you West Side style training from the outside of your powerlifting career, or how did you find your way toward conjugate?
Joe DeFranco was my first peek into the world of conjugate. So I was a regular old PT. I wasn't focused on strength training for clients. It was fitness work, calisthenics, teaching classes, kind of the broad spectrum of personal training. And then a co-worker at my first job showed me Joe DeFranco's Strong, the really old I say really old documentary. The one of the very first strength training documentaries about Joe DeFranco's gym in New Jersey. And that set a fire under me like nothing had before. Seeing those athletes in small groups just drive each other to do crazy, crazy, crazy things and just get stronger and stronger in the group setting. And it was from that point when I went reading Joe DeFranco's articles, which used to be on Elite FTS back in the day. I'm sure they're still there. But he had the Westside for Skinny Bastards series. If
Yeah,
you
what
ever
a
read
classic
those.
program. Yeah.
Oh man, I fell in love with it. And obviously off the back of that, I went looking at what more traditional Westside training might look like. Um, Misinterpreting speed days, dynamic effort days, like everyone does in the beginning, getting it dead fucking wrong the whole time, taking max effort very literally.
Mm.
Uh, but I must have trained Westside for 7 years before I bothered to sit the course. On the train conjugate or some
Oh,
some broken version of it.
yeah. I've heard the saying that it's never Westside unless you're actually in Westside gym.
I think that's probably, I've never been myself, but I can
Yeah.
only imagine that's true.
Yeah. So I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I just looked on open powerlifting. I think your best numbers are 540 squat.
285 is my best squat, which
Oh,
is
okay.
what
That's quite a bit more than 540.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's 615 or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
285 in wraps, I believe 265 in sleeves. Bench is what is it to you guys? 160, so 320.
352, right?
352, something like that.
Mm.
I'm not much of a bencher. And 285 on the deadlift, 282, something like that.
Okay. Yep.
Again, over 600.
Yeah. Balance squat and deadlift. And a
I
deadlift
love squat.
mixed grip at the end of a powerlifting meet is just a different animal. I don't think people who have competed in powerlifting realize that your gym
It's
lift doesn't translate.
so mean.
Yeah.
The worst. I have to hook grip it at the end of the meet. I just grab my own thumbs and pray.
Yeah. And did you pull sumo when you were in powerlifting?
No, I still pull. So I went into powerlift. I did strongman first, although I
Oh,
competed
okay.
more heavily in powerlifting beforehand. So I went into strongman. I fell into strongman 8 years ago. I moved to another city, Cambridge, and I was set to go to an American football training session, and my car had been broken into. So my kit was gone. So I drove to the local gym with my broken window, just pissed off, looking to blow off some steam. And they were holding a strongman taster day. So I actually got involved in strongman. I did what did I do? I did 2 novice contests and then one body power, which is a huge fitness expo here. I won the
Yeah.
novice class. Um, I had a really, really good day, and that's why I realized I really loved strongman. I went into powerlifting after moving back home and opening a commercial gym for a company, Snap Fitness, which I believe you have in the US. And because I didn't have access to a lot of strongman kit, it was easier to train powerlifting. So I thought I'd do a few years of that while I got myself, well, bought my own equipment.
That makes sense. So it was always in the plan to return to the strongman because you just got the bug from those initial.
Yeah, it was absolutely. I love strongman. I love the different facets of fitness that go with it. But during my powerlifting career, I snapped my femur in half. Not powerlifting, playing a game of American football, but yeah, I snapped my femur clean in half. So they put a bit of a delay on my return to strongman.
Were you just playing American football recreationally at that
Yeah,
time? Okay.
yeah. So we here in the UK we have recreational leagues. Like it's not like you guys where you've got the NFL and I think that's it out there, isn't
Yeah.
it? There's not like a Sunday league that you can
Well,
go
I'm
and
so
play
I'm
in.
so far removed from football. I might not be the best one to ask, even though I'm in
Fair
America.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, here there's like a Sunday league for recreational athletes all the way through to people who would potentially look to play in the NFL. That wasn't me. It was recreational.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that was very fun until the femur snapped.
It was great fun until my femur
Yeah.
snapped. I believe I was having a wonderful time. The play before, I think I skipped down the field shouting, "I fucking love this game!" And then I planted my
Yes.
foot in the ground, and my leg kept going. It was fucking awful.
What a perfect ironic moment to declare
Ah,
that,
the
moments before.
footage is the footage is just priceless. You couldn't have written it.
It takes a certain kind of man to a certain kind of person to be open to viewing that footage of themselves snapping their femur.
I wanted to hear the noise again because
Yeah.
I don't remember feeling it. I remember hearing it and thinking, "Fucking hell, that's my leg." And then I couldn't put weight on it, obviously. I realized my quad had grown twice the size. And I was like, I've either got some mad games going on or something has gone fucking
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, just break the femur, and that's the secret to like big Ramey sized quads, I
Yeah,
guess.
just massive looking quads that
So
were
what was
very.
the yeah? So what was the recovery like from that?
So I did that in November. Oh, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I did it in the November. I had a surgery the next day, so I'd snapped the femur in half, and then the top half of the femur had fractured open into 3 pieces. They had to pin it closed, put them together, put a bar through, so all the metal work's still in there. I went to the British Powerlifting Championships 7 months later, and squatted 285.
That's wow. What was the transition like out of not being able to walk to putting 600 pounds on your back?
Stubbornness got me through.
Yeah.
If you scroll back through the Instagram, if anyone's interested, if you scroll back, it's 4 or 5 years, 6 years maybe now. But there's videos of me box squatting with my legs still in all the braces, just doing one-legged box squats with 315 pounds. Stubbornness and stupidity, perhaps. If I was coaching someone, I probably wouldn't recommend it, but you know.
Yeah, and you maybe would have saved that athlete from doing further damage, but you certainly wouldn't have gotten them squatting 285 at the that powerlifting meet, right? I mean, you had to you had to take the risk to come out with
That's
that.
it. Yeah, exactly. When it's your own health, those risks are on you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a coach and it's a client, if that was the case, there'd have been a more slow and deliberate rehab process, I think.
Right. And so from there, did you pivot more heavily into strongman?
Yeah, once I realized my leg could take the weight again and it wasn't just going to give out, I started moving back over towards strongman. A gym opened here in Hereford, run by a gentleman here who runs a really popular supplements shop, CN Sport, and he opened a gym that gave us the opportunity to have real strongman equipment at our beck and call. So transitioned over there, and started competing again, and doing okay for someone who has a metal rod for a femur now.
And do you still base your own programming off of the principles from 531 for strongman?
No. So my 531 for strongman article was it must be 7 or 8 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was written while I was still training when I transitioned from training in Cambridge back to my hometown of Hereford, where I opened the Snap Fitness Gym. And there were a lot of questions about 531 for strongman on Google. There was a couple versions of the program. CJ something or another had written one. There were a couple semi decent ones that influenced me. But I'd run 531 for strongman in my own training, and I'd used it with a couple friends, and we just had this idea that worked. So I put it together as an article, not really expecting it to get much traction. And then Elite FTS agreed to publish it, which is obviously really cool for me. Yeah. And then it just seems to keep cropping up. There was a post today that someone had recommended the article in a group that I'm a member of, normally quite quietly, but obviously I may have just said, "Oh, no way, I wonder if this is any good." And yeah.
That's pretty great. I mean,
it's put my head up and hello.
Yeah.
Please pay a bit of attention to me, please.
Well, it's got to be so rewarding to see the impact that it's had.
It's the thing that I get messaged most about, and I love it. I became a coach because I like helping people. So the idea that a piece of work that I put out for my own amusement as much as anything, in the hope that maybe it helped a couple people, seems to it's been shared well over 1,000 times now. I get messages most weeks, just 1 or 2 saying they've tried it and they love it, or how do they modify it for this or that. And if anyone listening has questions, please do ask. I will find time to help, I promise. It feels great, man. Obviously, I think anyone who gets into coaching hopefully does it not just because they love fitness, but because they want to help. So, the idea that it's just a silly article that I wrote while I was amusing myself can help a lot of people is quite awesome. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even if you would modify your approach now, I think that probably some of the fundamental things you believe about training principles are still present in that. Even if you're sitting down and writing it for fun, you're going to be writing from your own perspective, right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I don't run 531 with my own clients because obviously I see them every week. So I can run something a little more nuanced, I guess. I don't have to plan quite that far in advance on percentages. I can see them in person and we can see what the numbers look like that day. But the idea of things like training maxes are super important to me, not pushing to max effort every session, despite being Westside trained. I think there's a line to what max effort needs to look like on those heavy efforts. And like knowing your volume and being able to push through some disgusting volume is a big part of strongman. So the plus sets just they play into it so well.
Yeah, I was really interested to see that the way that you were programming stones, similar to, for instance, stones similar to like a barbell lift. That was something that stood out to me as it hadn't occurred to me as a productive approach for that.
I don't think it's the most common approach, but it was more because I wanted to keep it as in line with the principles of 531 as I can.
Mm.
The tricky part about doing a set of 5 or 10 on Atlas stones, if you're loading to a platform, you've got to drag it off the platform every time.
Right. It's essentially a
But if you
cluster
load,
set.
it is indeed. But we quite often, I just set a yoke to the platform height, throw it
Mhm.
over the top of the yoke, let it bounce off a crash mat, and someone can kick it back to you.
That's easy.
Was how I would normally do it,
Yeah.
unless you've got a set run and you know what your contest run's going to look like, and you've got all the apparatus to set it up. Obviously, specificity is king going into a contest. But for general strongman training, throwing them over a nice tool yoke is going to do just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like so much of the loading aspect of the sport is contingent on just drilling that triple extension. And you might be doing it with different implements. But I mean, from the axle clean to like a stone load or a sandbag to shoulder, it's all triple extension.
It's all triple extension, and it's different timings of triple extension. That's probably the trickiest thing to learn is when you actually extend. Obviously, the Olympic lift, it's all fairly simultaneous. All the joints go together. But the fatter the implement, the more girthy the implement, you tend to have a more delayed triple extension to make sure that it's over your center of mass or center of gravity. So that's it really can throw people off, but it's always good fun to watch.
Right. Yeah.
It's the best thing to watch when someone mistimes their extension. You're like, oh, they're gonna fucking suffer for the next 10 seconds.
Yeah. The first time I tried log press, which was probably 3 weeks ago, I blacked out on my first work
No.
set. Yeah, I cleaned it to here. I'm looking up at the ceiling, and I think I either blood choked myself or I just forgot
Yeah.
to take a breath before I pressed. And it's going up like this, and I lock it out, and then I could tell I'm falling back, so I like throw it forward and bust my ass.
I'll let you scroll back. There's one of me blacking out on a front squat from a very similar thing. I think
Oh,
it fits on and blood
yeah,
chokes. And as I get
yeah.
to the top of it, it's oh shit.
That's scary. That's scary. I think I'd rather black out at the bottom of a front squat than halfway up.
I think I'd have rather blacked out at the bottom. Is when I got to the top and I realized my legs didn't
Yeah.
work anymore. I was like, well, I'm not getting into
Yeah.
the rack. Let's go.
Oh,
Yeah. You'll definitely black out at least once more in your strongman training career, I promise.
well, as at least I like going in prepared, so I can accept
Yeah.
that as long as I know now.
Fair enough, man.
Yeah.
How have you found it? You said that's 3 weeks ago. Like, how have you found getting into it?
It's so fun. I had really
Yeah.
been I'd really been driving my squat this spring pretty
Mm-hmm.
heavily, and I was squatting low bar, and I developed some pretty severe elbow tendonitis. I was
Yeah.
managing it with mobility stuff, but it was like to balance squat and bench, it just was getting to be too much, and one was going to have to go. So I squatted high bar for a while, and I'm still
Yeah.
squatting high bar now because it seems to be a good developmental movement for strongman. Since low bar probably isn't going to be contested at most shows, so I've loved it. I mean, I switched gyms just to have more availability for strongman implements, and I'm at a great place. Unfortunately I train very early in the morning because of my work situation. So a lot of
Yeah.
times, some of the people who know more about strongman just aren't around. But I'm really glad Sam Shathar has agreed to coach me, and so he knows what he's
Oh,
doing, and I'm glad to have him on board to guide me.
yeah, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
That will be awesome.
I think Josh was talking about this on his interview with you, but the idea that you're not training to peak out a 1 rep max, you need to have the ability to do AMRAPs. And so I've
Yeah.
enjoyed kind of tailoring my training in that direction. I'm kind of doing like a DUP thing with like 10-8-6 instead of maybe 5-3-1 and a plus set at the
Yep.
end. And I've been enjoying that. You know, that's quite honestly more volume on compound movements than I've done in a very long time. So it's different.
That powerlifting background.
Yeah.
How are your
Yeah.
lungs?
Oh man, I'm very aware of them.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, you know, I've always heard you need to do conditioning for strongman. And the first time I tried a sandbag medley, I was like, all right, I understand. The second sandbag, I'm sucking wind, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some absolutely minging protocols out there to help with strongman conditioning specifically, but any cardio is going to help there.
Yeah. Do you ever do you know like the Tabata protocol on the Wingate bike?
Uh, eight, the 8 on, 10 off. No, 4 and 8, isn't it? Tabata.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 minutes of 20 on, 10 off.
Yeah,
But
that's
there's
it.
a similar thing on the Wingate one. Yeah, where it's like, but different time measures. But yeah, I was wondering if that would be useful or just miserable.
It would be miserable. It would definitely be miserable.
Yeah.
I think you struggle to get the sandbag up enough times in 20 seconds with only 10 seconds off, but I'm definitely going to try that next week now.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm not trying to have a negative influence on your training.
Oh, no, that's not a negative
Yeah.
influence. I've got a couple clients that will love to try that for you.
Okay. Yeah. It seems like you do some kind of just scrolling, you know, briefly through your Instagram feed. It
Yeah.
seems like you kind of do have a nice balance in your own training of a planned progression, but the freedom to kind of go for something when you're feeling like it or play around with something.
Yeah. I've programmed conjugate for a very long time. And since the Westside course, I pretty much rely on it entirely.
Yeah.
It's training supposed to be fun, and right now I'm not peaking for any contests. There's nothing on the horizon this year while I open the new gym, so it's the time to play around a bit and let
Yeah.
clients play around a bit. We've got a couple going into contests in the next 4-6 weeks, so they don't get to play as much. But it generally in my clients' training, every 4 or 5 weeks, I give them free reign to take an attempt that they've not tried before. It's supposed to be fun, and at the end of the day, they want to be
Yeah.
strength athletes. Not everyone is going to be world's strongest man or woman, and I think I'm not telling people to accept that they don't get to be the best in the world, but when you're going to be the best in the world at summit, you kind of you almost know from the start if you're
Yeah.
genetically placed to do those kind of things.
Mhm.
And when you train gen pop or recreational athletes, they're there for the fun of it, so make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my opinion, like, I'm sure there's plenty of people disagree with me, but my guys get pretty free reign at least once a month. If they come in and they go, I want to fucking max deadlift today, then they get to max deadlift. Like, I might make them do a variation so that we do like stay off that, the principle of accommodation. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if they come in and they say, I want to try a max deadlift, I might make them do it off an axle or off a deficit or with a pause, but they get a chance to pull something on the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, if you don't have a contest on the horizon, if you don't have set goals, I want to qualify for this, I want to hit this in 12 weeks. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
why not give yourself the opportunity, you know?
Have some fun with it. And you can also regulate recovery on conjugate really well. That's the other thing I really love about it. If you go balls out on a deadlift on a Saturday because all your mates are around and you're cheering each other on, you can taper back Monday's squat session or Tuesday's squat session a little bit to accommodate for the fact that you might have a bit of a CNS fatigue. It's very, very much able to go with the flow, which I like.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of, and I'm assuming because this is something that I think gets overlooked a lot on Westside, there is definitely a block in every workout for a lot of kind of developmental hypertrophy work. Is that something you include? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot. Especially newer athletes. So over the first, I'm really lucky. Most of my clients do stick around for quite a long time. Maybe they're terrified. Maybe I'm good at my job. One or the other. One or the other.
Sure.
But their first 6 to 12 months is quite traditional in terms of the Westside balance of accessory to main work. They don't do a lot of max effort work. It's what I've kind of developed as heavy effort. So the books that Westside is largely based on, Satsiorski and things like that, when they talk about max effort work, they don't talk about it like Louis did, where it's all 100% top effort. That's very powerlifting specific. They talk about the 90 to 100% range for 8 to 10 reps total training volume. So I tend to do lots of 85% for triples, 90% for doubles, 92% for singles, 95% for singles. And then the speed work is with raw lifters. I don't bother with bands and chains very often, especially in the beginning. So 70, 75% for force development, maybe a little lighter if they're new, but huge focus on accessory work, triceps, chest, lots of leg work, lots of hamstring work. Most people who come to me, at least, tend to follow that very typical. They can see the front, so they've done the front, they've trained the front a lot. They've got quads and they've got pecs and they've got biceps, but they're lacking the spinal erectors, they're lacking the hamstrings. So I tend to step back, fix all that, bring them up to par, and then it can look more like Westside. They can try some more max effort work, and we can focus on some more skill development. But until they've got a good strength base, they don't need to be over skilled in the squat. Let's put some legs on them first.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sort of is a prerequisite in a sport that has strong as part of its name, right? I mean, to
or power.
Yeah, right. Yeah, develop some. I mean, you need to develop the chassis before you can tune it, I guess.
That's how I tend to approach it.
Yeah, I don't even actually know what a chassis is. It just sounds like a car thing that would support a car. So I guess you would be deadlifting
I've
the
agreed
car.
with you, and
Okay.
I know absolutely fuck all about cars. So
Yeah,
it's chassis now, man. We've got
perfect. Mechanics, get at us in the comments.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck are you two talking about?
If you were gonna pick, 3 or 4 accessories that you would program for almost anyone, do you have go-to movements, or are you kind of looser with that as long as they're selecting something that stimulates the proper area?
Ooh, if they're new, I can almost guarantee it's going to be some kind of secondary hinge, so an RDL or a good morning, because people, I think that hinge movement is not something that a lot of people naturally do. So learning to keep the ribs stacked, make sure that the pelvis doesn't go into an anterior pelvic tilt and they actually drive the hip structure back and not just lift their tailbone out the way. They're almost guaranteed to have some kind of secondary hinge movement. I like dumbbell press work alongside a barbell. Whether they're doing powerlifting or strongman, they're going to do some dumbbell press work on all kinds of inclines. But I like the idea that they can keep that chest open. They can rotate the shoulder and the joint, keep the shoulder blades back, rather than getting all inward tilted from the bench work. We can keep that nice open posture and hopefully develop it as they go. Some kind of upper back, rear delt, face pulls or band pull aparts play a big part. I know they're not the most exciting movement on the earth, but
Yeah,
they tend to be necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, a fourth one. Some kind of weighted carry, whether they're doing powerlifting or strongman, whether that be an offset farmers or single shoulder carry or just some marching with a bar on the back, something to stimulate the core in motion.
If anybody tells you they enjoy doing their face pulls, they're lying. What I do to just make sure I get it done is I do before essentially my lower days, like a circuit of face pulls and then calf work, because just for ankle mobility, and then like a core movement to kind of activate it, because I definitely will be out of the gym before I do my ab stuff, so it just makes sense to do it before. And yeah,
I like the idea. Just a little three-way circuit before you get kicking.
Yeah, and it's like if that tires me out enough that it affects my compound movement, then I probably really do need to be doing it first, because I have such a just an abject deficit in development there.
Yeah, if your face pulls and calf raises are fucking you up, then yeah, you probably need some work.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good idea. I like that. Yep, that's I'm gonna try that.
Stole that from Sam Shathar.
Did you?
Yeah, he does it himself. I did want to ask you, just because you mentioned carries, do you have any tips for turns on farmers walks?
For the drop and turn?
What if you were your first, hypothetically, you were a young man whose first strongman competition did not allow the drop and turn?
Ooh, I'd encourage you not to do it. So that's what, although my leg broke playing an American football game, I'd already had a spiral fracture on the femur. it turned out the X-rays revealed this. The spiral fracture on the femur was from the week before, where I was doing repeated attempt to turn with a farmer's walk, and I didn't think to change my leg.
Uh-huh.
So I
Wow.
was always rotating on the one leg.
Yeah.
And so when they took me in and X-rayed it, they were like, "Well, you can see where it snapped, but there's spiral fractures all up and down it. Like it's been this way for at least a couple of weeks." And I was like, "Oh shit, I know what I've done."
Just
So
immediately knew.
one of those moments like, "Oh
Yeah.
fuck, that's why my legs hurt all week."
Oh yeah. So you were getting pain.
Yeah, I've been foam rolling it like, "Oh god,
Yeah.
I've done something to my quad." Yeah, no, I fractured my leg. I've not realised, but so if I wasn't allowed to turn, I would look to almost come to a complete halt on a staggered step, and then using quick foot drills, rotate whichever way I was going to rotate. I'd have that foot behind slightly, stay on the ball of that foot so it could tap on the spot, and rotate the other one around. So you
Oh,
were,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you weren't having to take too many staggery steps with all that weight in one place.
That makes a lot
And
of
that's
sense.
just, and then obviously you're just keeping those lats down hard like a deadlift to try and stop those things over rotating as you finish. Because if you get round really fast but your feet are still moving, those farmers walks are going to keep going and they're going to pull your core with them.
I definitely have experienced that, attempting to negotiate the turns. I just go. I actually was trying to turn to like counter turn, my wrists before I went into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it still is just. But the idea of stagger stepping and sort of pivoting around the one foot, that makes so much
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
that's how I would probably do it. If it was a gravel ground underneath me, I'd be tempted just to keep my ball of my foot down and almost skid round.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's grass and it's dry, then maybe not.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Just judging by what I know bones do now.
Right. Yeah. So your advice would not be to develop spiral fractures practicing the turns
No, I
prior
would
to the event.
really,
Yeah.
really encourage you to avoid that one.
Fair enough. So could you tell me about the transition from Snap Fitness into Misfits Barbell?
It's Misfits Barbell.
Yes, very
That's what's
nice.
open now. So after Snap Fitness, I was offered an opportunity to work out of a gym here locally known as the Unit, and it's a phenomenal facility. If you look back over the last few months of my Instagram, you'll see that I recently had to go sober. I chose to go clean and sober after fucking my life up pretty well at the start of the year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So a bit of a history of narcotics abuse. And that's been going on whilst I've been competing to like the standard I have been. So, yeah, been working out of a CrossFit gym for the last 5 months, and it's been a really wonderful experience. I've gotten fit as fuck just
Yeah.
being around CrossFit. Obviously, it's super different, but it's been really enjoyable. But it has kind of forced me to take that chance that I always wanted. From the day I saw that Joe DeFranco documentary, Strong, I knew I wanted my gym and I wanted that kind of gym. So, out of every massive fuck up comes an opportunity, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it takes a special kind of person to recognize that and to step into that opportunity, I think.
well, let's find out if I put it off first. But
Well, congratulations on the opening, and also obviously congratulations on the sobriety. It's over 3 months now. Is that right?
I am. What is it? It'll be 98 days tomorrow, so 100 days
Wow.
on Tuesday,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother.
Would you be comfortable going into a little more detail about kind of your journey with sobriety?
Sure. What do you want to know?
You kind of have had a history of, a substance abuse throughout your life, throughout your 20s, like.
Oh man. Okay, so I started with alcohol. Like in the UK, it's not uncommon. I'm sure it's not in the States
Mhm.
either for young people to be introduced to alcohol quite young. And binge drinking is very much a cultural thing here. So from the age of 16, 17, I got into drinking quite heavily. Um, throughout my early career, like I had bouts of it where I'd drink more frequently, where I wouldn't drink at all, but I don't have an off switch. If I start drinking, I'm getting drunk, and not just kind of drunk. I'm getting as drunk as you can be before you just kind of have to stop. And again, it didn't really affect my life in many negative ways. I think looking back, had I understood the effects it has on things like muscle development, neurological development, I wouldn't have done it, because looking back, I realized how much it probably affected my early entrance into things like strongman. Had I been clean and sober then, maybe I'd have been able to do more in the time that I've done. But if I'm 35, about 7 years ago, I discovered cocaine and started using cocaine with alcohol. So although I didn't drink very frequently, if I drank, I used cocaine. And then the leg break happened. And after the leg break, the following year, I tore the meniscus around that knee, just part of the process of like pushing a bit too hard. But rather than going back on opiates, well, obviously the painkillers they give you, I decided to try marijuana instead. And turns out I fucking love marijuana. Like really, really badly. It helped me sleep. It calmed me down. It just seemed to have no negative effects, seemingly, obviously. But over 5 years, it became a daily habit. I was in control in the way any addict would say they're in control, where I was just in the evenings, and then it would sneak into, if I had a half day, I'd be doing it in the afternoon. Then if I had a day off, I'd have one in the morning. And then it impairs your judgment. So you think, well, I'm not getting enough of a kick off this, so I'll do some coke or some MDMA or God knows what else. And I was lying to friends, lying to my partner at the time. Yeah, I was doing a lot of drugs, and still trying to be a competitive strongman, and still competing to this like England's strongest man standard, Britain's strongest man standard.
Yeah.
And then at the end of last year, it all came to a massive head. I lost like pretty much everything. I lost friendships, relationship, job, self-respect. My reputation was quite badly damaged, but understandably so. Like these are all things that happen when you fucking push your luck that hard. So yeah, a decision was made 98 days ago to stop that shit and try and focus on the thing that I loved, which was training people. And I'm very lucky. Most clients, a very large percentage of my clients stuck with me and understood that I was trying to be better. I train quite a lot of youngsters, teenagers, adults with neurodiversity, autism, and all sorts. So being able to hopefully show some kind of example that just because you fuck up, and no matter how big you fuck up, you can do something about it if you really want to. Like hit rock bottom hard enough, I guess.
Yeah, it's powerful proof that you can pivot hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything that has helped you navigate these past 98 days? In particular, speaking maybe to someone who's at that point where they want to make the decision, but maybe they don't feel empowered, they're afraid.
It's like it's one of those weird things. Like you talk to people, you're like, "Oh, you should stop smoking." They're like, "Yeah, I know, but I don't want to." And I just knew that I wanted to. Like I really wanted to. It's not. I didn't. Yeah. I didn't cut down. I didn't try and. I didn't put myself in a rehab center. I just stopped. Obviously, withdrawal from marijuana takes quite a long time, and I was using quite a lot of cocaine, especially after I lost my job and everything. You fall on these things even harder as a I don't know, humpeter, I guess.
Of course, yeah, and we program ourselves to rely on certain things, to self-soothe. And so to be in that position without those things you were programmed for had to be just an incredible test of will.
Oh, as I said with the broken leg, I'm pretty fucking stubborn when I decide I'm doing something. It's and like that set of attributes I developed through my fitness like through wanting to be competitive and wanting to be good at what I do, that definitely helped. When I
Yeah.
decided it was enough, it was enough. It all just stopped. And it's not like I threw away, like you hear all these dramatic stories of people throwing away all sorts of things and flushing drugs. And I'm 99% sure if I looked around hard enough, I'd still find some. I just
Yeah.
don't know what they are. I don't care anymore.
Wow. I
um,
mean, that's proof of self-mastery, to I mean, it's admirable to throw everything out and scour the house,
yeah,
but
if
to
that's
be
how
in
it
that
works.
position where you trust yourself, because like you said, you make a decision and that's your decision. I mean, that's
Yep.
really admirable. It takes a lot of self-knowledge and self-honesty, I think.
I think that was the I was lying to myself a lot, and
Mm.
I became aware that I was lying to myself and everyone around me really a lot, and I hated that. I know that it's wrong when you're doing it. When you're lying to your friends, your family, you're fucked at that point. If so anyone's listening to this and they're thinking, I wonder how bad it was. If you're lying to people about what you're doing, then you've gone too far. You're fucked. You're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, and that's why you're lying about it. So yeah, that's the point. And you can lie to everybody around you, but it's really, really tricky to lie to yourself forever. So take an honest look. If you want to fix it, you can. You really, really can. At least I believe you can. And
Yeah.
again, if someone is listening to this, if it's and they're thinking, "Oh fuck me, how did you do it? Like, what were you thinking? Like, were there any routines?" Message me, and I will talk you through everything I can think of. I promise.
That's an incredibly generous offer, and I'm sure that many people will be reaching out. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm gonna post this in the description for the podcast. But do you want to just like go ahead and say your Instagram handle and everything?
Oh, yes. So the Instagram handle for my own one is Hereford Strength Coach, and there's a period in between each word. And the new gym is under Misfits Barbell, which
Great.
is
A great name, and you do kind of look like you could have played in the band The Misfits, I have to say. You very much have like a bassist, or maybe no, you're more like of a Doyle Von Frankenstein kind of figure, I would say. Yeah.
the name was quite well received, as you can probably see. I'm a tad eccentric, so yeah, it was either that or I was struggling between weird side barbell as well,
Oh, I
but it
actually
didn't.
really like that too.
I liked it, but every time I said it to someone, they're like, "I don't get it," and I
No.
was like,
Okay.
"Okay, don't matter, man. Nobody gets it. It's not. It's not that funny."
Well, I really appreciate you being so open and sharing that aspect of your journey.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I'm excited to see, and I'm sure you're excited to see what you're going to do now, with more space opened up for in your body, in your mind for the sport.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Like I said, I've been in a CrossFit gym for since January. I've not really done specific strength training, but I did do a strongman contest. Paddy Haynes, who's UK's strongest man, a natural athlete, he hosts a strongman event at his farm every year. So I put my name in for that because the client was competing, and I had a great fucking day. Like
Yeah.
my strength levels were something that I would not ever have estimated, considering how much training I've done. And all that told me is how toxic all the stuff I was putting in my body was, and how much it was limiting my ability to display and train strength. Because I'm not training to the level of intensity of strength training that I was. And I hit PBs in events that I had no business hitting PBs in.
Wow.
Like I'm 5 kilos lighter at the moment, so 12-ish pounds. Actually, I haven't really deadlifted much this
Really?
year. Not in any really training capacity. I'll load the bar up occasionally and do a pull or two. And I pulled an axle 290 for reps, which for me is really good. So if anyone's wondering why you should go sober, like apparently you just get a bit stronger for free if you do. So
Yeah. Yeah, free bonus points. Obviously, it helps so much to have another passion and another structuring thing in your life
mhm.
whenever you're making that transition.
Yeah. it would have been far harder if I didn't have specifically a sport to train in, I guess. If all your hobbies are at home, I can see how that would be even harder.
Yeah, because then you're in the environment, right?
Exactly. The thing for me was getting out of the environment as early as possible. So there was a 5 o'clock alarm. I was out of the house at 6 o'clock, and I didn't come back
Yeah.
until it was bedtime, pretty much.
Yeah, I also have a history of some self-destructive behavior and addiction, and I really found the same thing to be true, that keeping myself out of the house was made it much easier to avoid those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's a new routine, we'll call it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So maybe this is a good thing to end on. I'm curious, what are your proudest moments as an athlete?
As an athlete, ooh, competing at England's Strongest Man and UK's and Brits was, if you'd have told high school me that that was a thing, that that was even possible, there's I weighed 140 pounds if I'm lucky
Yeah. Wow.
at the end of high school. Even at 18 years old, maybe
Uh,
155 pounds.
yeah.
So the idea that I could compete with some of the best strength athletes in the country and hold my own was pretty massive. And pulling my first 300 kilo deadlift in front of a live audience, like in a show, that was pretty wild. The video of that's out there somewhere, and you can see I'm a pretty happy bunny.
As you should be. As you should be.
I was, yeah, I was very
Yeah.
amused with myself on that day.
Yeah. Just to have that, it has to feel incredible to have the convergence of being on such a big stage where it's a victory just to arrive at that stage,
Yeah,
having all of that support, and to pull something out of yourself that, maybe you didn't know was there. I mean, maybe in the weeks leading up, you knew you were in that territory, but 5 years ago, maybe not.
yeah, exactly. And it was a really special one for me because the guy who got me into strongman properly, the guy who trained me, he coached me, he sponsored me through his personal training company at the time. So he helped supply me with kit, never charged me for a session. A guy called Dan Thomas, he was there. He traveled to watch me compete in that
Oh,
show.
wow.
And when they said they were loading the 300, I remember him just looking at me and be like, "Come on, we worked so fucking hard all that time for this." Like, although I've not seen him in a few years, like
Yeah.
I could hear him. I could just hear his cues, and I was like, "Come on, this has got to be the fucking one."
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
watching. He's watching, and it did it. It went, and yeah, that was real nice.
Yeah. That's so cool to have the person who maybe guided you early on there. Yeah. It's another
Oh,
level
he
of
did. He
special.
did so much for me.
Would you say that lifting means something different to you now than it did whenever you first started?
Yeah, it's my whole life.
Yeah.
That they do say not to let something become your whole life, but I love it, and I like obviously my job is there. It's my hobby. It's what I compete in. It's what I study. I've built friendships of all kinds. I've helped people do things they never thought they'd do. Like last year, I was really lucky in that I had a 16-year-old girl break, I think, 6 world records in powerlifting. Um, a gentleman could break the raw squat record for our federation, and this year, hopefully, well, not hopefully, she's unofficially broken world record already. So hopefully, we just solidify that soon at the Brits. So yeah, just and then it does. It means everything. I don't do anything else in my time. I live and breathe this, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an awesome note to end on, and I appreciate so much you taking the time to do this.
You too, man. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
That's good. Absolutely. Bye now.
Take care of yourself, brother.